My name is Renata Holloway. I'm 31 years old. And the Tuesday morning 3 weeks before Thanksgiving was when I finally understood that some people only notice what you carry once you set it down. My cousin Delia sent the group chat at 9:14 a.m. I know the time because I still have the screenshot. The chat was called Thanksgiving at the Alderton Room, and it had 11 names in it. My mother Carolyn, my father Dennis, my Aunt Patricia and Uncle Greg, Delia and her husband Marcus, my father's brother, Uncle Warren, and his wife Sheila, my younger brother Colton, my grandmother on my father's side, who everyone calls Nana Bev. 11 people. I counted twice. My name was not there. I sat with my coffee going cold and read the messages filling in beneath Delia's opening line. We have the private room confirmed for PM. Dress is smart casual, and watched my family respond one by one. A heart emoji from my mother. My dad typed perfect. Colton sent a thumbs up. Nana Bev asked if there would be mashed potatoes. Uncle Warren said he would bring a pie. It looked like any ordinary planning thread. Warm. Organized. Everyone accounted for. Almost everyone. I semi-mugged down and texted my mother directly. 3 words. Am I coming? Her reply came 8 minutes later. Oh, honey. We just thought you might be busy with work. You're always so stressed around the holidays. We didn't want to add to your plate. I read that twice. The logic of it was familiar, the kind of excuse that sounds like consideration but lands like erasure. We didn't want to bother you. We know how you are. As if my calendar were the obstacle and not the fact that no one had thought to ask. I went back to the screenshot Delia's friend Jess had forwarded me by accident. She had been added to the chat for venue coordination and apparently hadn't noticed my name was missing when she hit send. I scrolled past the logistics, past the pie discussion, past my mother's heart emoji. I found the message that had come in at 9:22 a.m., 8 minutes after the chat opened. My Aunt Patricia had typed, honestly better without the drama she brings every year anyway. 7 people had liked it. Something in me went very still. Not the kind of still that is about to become noise. The other kind. The kind that arrives after you have heard something that confirms what you had half understood for a long time and are no longer willing to pretend you haven't heard. I put my phone face down on the counter. I finished making my coffee. I did not type anything back to my mother. I did not call Delia. I went to my laptop, opened my email, and navigated to a folder labeled Thanksgiving 2024. What none of those 11 people had paused to consider was that the room they were planning their dinner in had been booked and paid for by the person they had decided was better left out. I have worked as a contracts coordinator for a regional logistics firm for 6 years. The job is not glamorous, but it requires a specific kind of attention that I have come to value. The ability to hold a large number of moving pieces in view simultaneously and notice when something is out of alignment before it becomes a problem. I review vendor agreements, track payment schedules, flag liability language, and follow up on terms that people signed without fully reading. My director, a meticulous woman named Daphne Ewan, once told me in my annual review that I had the best document retention habit she had seen in 20 years of managing contract teams. I filed a compliment and moved on. I am precise by training and by temperament. I keep records the way some people keep photographs, not because I plan to use them against anyone, but because I find order reassuring. Loose ends bother me. Unresolved items on a checklist bother me in a way that I have learned to treat as useful information rather than a character flaw. The year before the Thanksgiving group chat incident, I had spent 3 months working through a vendor dispute involving a freight company that had been systematically overbilling us on a net 30 payment structure. The discrepancy was not large on any individual invoice, the kind of variance that could be attributed to processing fees or rounding if you looked at each invoice in isolation. The pattern only became visible when I pulled the full 12-month history and laid every payment side by side in spreadsheet, cross-referenced against the original contract terms. The vendor's account representative, a man named Terrence Olds, was pleasant and unhelpful in approximately equal measure. He returned emails in a timely fashion and answered every question without actually answering any of them. He had a reliable habit of citing the terms of agreements he had signed as if he had not read them and expressing surprise at specifics that were clearly documented. I kept every email. I kept every amendment. I maintained a running log of each conversation, dated and summarized, attached to a master file I updated weekly. At the end of 3 months, Daphne presented Terrence's regional manager with a documented timeline, a clause-by-clause analysis of the contract deviations, and a figure representing the cumulative overpayment. The manager, a practical woman who did not want a protracted dispute, authorized a credit within the week. Daphne told me, in the quiet way she gives praise, that the case had succeeded entirely because of the quality of the documentation. I thought about that case on the Tuesday morning I sat with my cold coffee and opened the folder labeled Thanksgiving 2024. My family has never quite known what to do with my particular quality of attention. I grew up the middle child in a household that valued warmth over structure. My mother is the kind of woman who makes 3 different desserts for every gathering because she cannot bear the thought of someone going without their favorite. My father has coached youth baseball for 20 years and knows every family on our street by first name. They are, in the ways that matter most, good people. The difference, the one that calcified slowly over years into something I stopped naming out loud, was not cruelty. It was calibration. My brother Colton's needs had a different weight in that house than mine. His school events landed on the family calendar without coordination. His worries generated extended dinner conversations. His accomplishments prompted calls to relatives within hours. None of this was calculated. It was simply how attention moved in our household, and the current, over time, ran toward him. I remember the summer I was 23, the year I passed my contract management certification on the first attempt. I had been studying for 4 months alongside a full work schedule, taking the practice modules on my lunch breaks and on weekends, getting up early to review the sections I found difficult. I passed with a score in the 93rd percentile. I called my mother that evening and told her. She said, "That's wonderful, honey, we're so proud." Then she told me that Colton had been accepted into his first-choice graduate program. We spent the next 20 minutes talking about his program, his advisor, the city he would be moving to, whether the apartment he had found was in a safe neighborhood. I want to be clear. I was happy for my brother. I am genuinely fond of him. The gap I am describing is not his fault any more than it is my parents' fault in any deliberate sense. It is simply the landscape I grew up in and the shape it left in the way I learned to occupy space in my own family. My mother would tell you she treats her children equally. She would mean it. But I stopped expecting certain things around age 24, and when I stopped expecting them, I stopped asking. And when I stopped asking, I became, steadily, quietly, the one who handled things. The one who found the restaurant. The one who confirmed the reservation. The one who remembered Nana Bev needed a chair with arms because her hip had been bothering her since spring. The one who, apparently, was bringing drama. The Alderton Room is a private event space attached to a lakeside restaurant 20 minutes from my parents' house. The main dining room faces the water. The private room sits off to one side with its own entrance and a window that catches the November light in the late afternoon in a way that makes the whole table look warmer than the season outside would suggest. I found it in the fall of 2021, when my mother had double-booked herself with a church auxiliary commitment and the family Thanksgiving fell apart 3 weeks out. I made 6 calls that week. I negotiated a reduced deposit rate because we were booking late in the season. I confirmed dietary restrictions across every branch of the family. I drove by to check the room layout because my grandmother uses a cane, and I wanted to verify the distance from the parking area to the entrance. I emailed everyone a summary with arrival time, parking details, and a note about the dress code. The dinner happened. The room was warm. Nana Bev said the mashed potatoes were the best she had eaten since her own mother made them. My father gave a toast and squeezed my shoulder afterward and said, "You always know how to hold things together." I stood there with a glass of sparkling cider and felt, for a moment, both proud and invisible, a combination I have come to recognize as the texture of being the dependable one. My parents reimbursed me a portion of the deposit afterward. I did not track it against the total. I filed it as a personal contribution and let it go. The second year, I booked the Alderton Room again without being asked because it had gone smoothly and I knew how it worked. Sylvia Marsh, the events coordinator, had my card on file and my preferences noted. She remembered, without prompting, that I always requested the corner seats for Nana Bev. The deposit cleared in August. My family said the usual things. This year I had done the same.
July. My card.
My inbox. My confirmation email in a folder with a label no one else would ever see. I had been included in 0 messages about the event I was funding. There were 2 other arrangements running in the background that Tuesday morning. I want to be precise about them because they matter for understanding what the next 48 hours looked like. My parents had been receiving a standing grocery delivery since my father's back surgery 2 years prior. He had been out of work for 11 weeks. He manages a sporting goods warehouse, and the physical requirements are significant, and during that stretch the household ran thin. The usual rhythms that my parents had maintained for 30 years without difficulty came under pressure in the way that any system comes under pressure when one of its load-bearing components is suddenly absent. I set up the subscription as a temporary measure. It had seemed straightforward at the time, a practical response to a specific, time-limited problem. I added my mother's email to the account as a secondary notification contact for logistics, in case there were delivery issues when I wasn't available to manage them, which had seemed like a sensible precaution. The temporary measure had been running for 22 months without anyone initiating a conversation about whether to continue it or how to structure it going forward. Colton had been a secondary driver on my auto insurance policy since he turned 22, while he was completing his undergraduate degree. The arrangement had been framed at the time as a favor during a transitional period. That transitional period had ended 4 years ago. He was 26, a graduate student, and employed part-time at his university's athletics department. The premium for his addition to my policy had been a monthly line item I had raised with him gently the previous spring. He had said he would sort it out. The subject had not come back up. I sat with my laptop open that Tuesday evening and looked at these arrangements with the same attention I bring to a contract that has drifted from its original terms. The honest question a contracts coordinator is trained to ask is not about fault. It is about the current state of the agreement versus what was originally established. In both cases, the honest current state was the same. I had been the one quietly holding structures in place that served other people, and no one in the chat that morning had thought to include me in the dinner those structures were funding. I picked up my phone and called Sylvia Marsh. She answered on the second ring. She always does. It is one of the things I have always respected about her. Renata, she said. We're looking forward to November. I need to flag something on the reservation, I said. I'm no longer able to guarantee payment from my account. I'd like to put the booking on hold while the family contacts sort out the billing. A professional pause. Of course. Since the reservation is in your name, I'll need to reach out to a secondary contact to confirm a new payment guarantor. Is there someone I should loop in? I gave her my mother's name and phone number. We'll need to hear back within 48 hours, Sylvia said, or the room returns to our waitlist. That's completely reasonable, I said. Thank you, Sylvia. I ended the call. I opened the banking app on my phone and paused the grocery subscription. The pause confirmation arrived by email within seconds. I composed a short message to Craig Fenton, my insurance broker, who had managed my accounts for years with a kind of quiet confidence I find deeply reassuring. Craig does not miss things. I explained that my brother needed to establish his own policy and asked him to reach out to Colton directly. Craig's office would send a formal notice of the pending coverage change, which meant the paperwork would arrive through official channels. A form letter from an insurance firm carries a different weight than a text from a sibling. Then I put my phone away and went to work. The first call from my mother came at 2:47 that afternoon. I was reviewing a distribution contract addendum. I watched her name appear on my screen and let it go to voicemail. Renata, the restaurant called about some kind of mix-up with the booking. I think it might be a billing error. Can you call when you get a chance? Her voice was even. Curious, not yet alarmed. She did not yet have the full picture of what she was looking at. The second call came at 4:15. I let it go again. This time her voice had shifted, still measured, but with something tighter underneath. Sylvia from the Alderton room says the deposit authorization has been flagged and they need a new card on file. I don't understand what's happening. Please call. The third call came at 5:48 as I was putting my coat on to leave. I answered. There's no mix-up, I said. A pause. What do you mean? The venue says they can't confirm the room. That's correct. Renata, We have 11 people expecting. Mom. My voice stayed level. Not cold, not warm. The register I use when I need someone to hear what I am actually saying without the temperature of it becoming a distraction. I saw the group chat. The silence that followed was the particular kind that arrives when someone understands that the conversation they thought they were having is not the conversation they are in. I don't know what you're. Patricia's message. 9:22 in the morning. 7 likes. Another pause. Longer. People say things in group chats, Renata. Nobody meant anything by. I'm not calling to go through what was meant, I said. You asked me about the reservation. The reservation is on hold. If the family wants to keep the Alderton room, someone needs to put down a card. Sylvia said 48 hours. You cannot be serious. I have Sylvia's direct line if it would help. My mother moved into the register she uses when she is managing something rather than engaging with it. Careful, deliberate, the tone that usually precedes let's not make this bigger than it needs to be. This is the whole family's Thanksgiving. You're going to append everyone's holiday over a comment Patricia made without thinking? I'm not appending anyone's holiday, I said. I'm removing myself from the billing. The holiday can happen. Someone else just needs to be the one paying for it. A beat. That's not fair. Maybe not, I said. But it's accurate. I said goodnight and ended the call. I sat in my car in the parking structure afterward without starting the engine. Not because I was in distress, I was past that. I was in the quieter place on the other side of it, the place that feels less like feeling and more like clarity. I had said the true thing. The true thing was out in the world now, doing whatever it was going to do. Then I drove home. The next 48 hours I did not watch in real time. I know them from the sequence of messages and calls, which I have since assembled in order. Tuesday evening, 6:04 p.m., Delia called. I let it ring. Her voicemail was longer than I expected, nearly 2 minutes. She said she was sorry about the chat, that she had not seen Patricia's message until after the fact, that she should have said something when she did see it. Her voice had the particular quality of someone who is genuinely uncomfortable and has been thinking about what to say for several hours. I listened to the whole thing. I did not call back. Tuesday evening, 7:12 p.m., my father called. His voicemail was 4 sentences. He said there had obviously been a misunderstanding, this wasn't like me, and I should call when I was ready. I replayed the second sentence twice. I have come to understand that when people say this isn't like you, they usually mean this doesn't match who I needed you to be, that the person doing the unexpected thing has, somewhere in the other person's picture of them, been assigned a fixed role, and the unexpected thing has disrupted the picture rather than updated it. I put the phone on the counter and made dinner. Tuesday evening, 8:30 p.m., a text from my mother. We should talk. Not just about the dinner. About everything. I read it and set my phone down. Tuesday evening, 9:15 p.m., Colton called. His voicemail was careful in the way that indicates a prior briefing. He said Craig Fenton's office had sent him a notice about a policy review, and he wanted to make sure it wasn't sent in error. I texted back, not an error. Your own policy will likely cost less than you think. Craig's team can walk you through it. He did not reply that night. Wednesday morning, 11:02 a.m., the grocery delivery service sent a pause notification to my mother's email, the secondary account I had added for logistics reasons and never removed. She called 3 minutes later. I answered. The grocery order didn't come, she said. Flat in the way that is a prelude to something that isn't flatness. I paused it. Why? Because I set it up during Dad's surgery as a short-term arrangement. That was almost 2 years ago. It became permanent without any discussion.
A breath.
Renata. We depend on that order. The word depend sat between us. I let it sit. I know, I said. So, you're just removing it. Over a group chat comment. I'm not removing it as a punishment, I said. I'm stopping something I started doing without it being asked for or acknowledged, which quietly became permanent without being discussed. That's a different thing. This is not who you are, Mom. I kept my voice even. This is exactly who I am. You just haven't been paying attention. She was quiet. When she spoke again, the careful register was gone, replaced by something more direct. Patricia is sorry. She called me this morning. She wants to apologize to you. She's welcome to. Will you come to Thanksgiving? I had been turning this question over since Tuesday morning. Not emotionally, analytically, the way I approach a clause in a contract that sounds straightforward but carries more weight than its surface reading suggests. What was being asked? Was it an invitation? An attempt to restore the previous arrangement, where I organized, paid, and received in exchange the privilege of attendance? Or was it something different, an honest request from people who had not fully understood what they had until it was interrupted? I'll come, I said, if the invitation is direct from the family as a group, and if it is clear that I'm invited because people want me there. Not as a solution to the reservation problem. Not as a resolution to a logistical gap. An actual invitation. My mother did not speak for a moment. That's what I need, I said. I'm not asking for a formal apology at the dinner table. I'm asking for an honest ask. I'll talk to your father, she said. Okay, I said. I hope the dinner comes together. The invitation came Thursday afternoon in a new group chat my father had created. 12 names, mine among them. He wrote it himself. I could tell from the brevity and the absence of emoji, because my father texts the way he coaches, without decoration. Renata, we want you there.
We should have said that to start with.
Dinner is at 4. Delia is handling the venue. Patricia sent a separate message an hour after the group chat went up. 3 sentences. She said she owed me an apology and she knew it. She said what she had typed was unkind and untrue. She said she was sorry. I read it twice. I sat with it for the rest of that afternoon without responding, not out of coldness, but because I wanted my response to carry its actual meaning when I sent it, and I needed a day to find out what that meaning was. The following morning I sent back 2 words. Thank you. An acknowledgement, not a closing. Both of those things at once. Delia rebooked the Alden room. She told me later that Sylvia had held the private room an extra 12 hours past the deadline as a professional courtesy because of the account history. I appreciated that. It is the kind of grace that only looks small if you have never been the person scrambling to hold something together at the last minute. The dinner itself was not a scene. That is the part that surprises people, sometimes, when I tell the story, as if the resolution ought to be as charged as the wound that preceded it. It was Thanksgiving. The room faced the lake. The light came off the water in the late afternoon in the low gold way it does in November, and it made everyone at the table look warmer than the air outside would suggest. Sylvia confirmed the reservation at the entrance and greeted me by name. I was glad to see her. We sat down. Uncle Warren gave a report on his fishing trip. Delia's husband Marcus talked about a renovation they were doing on their kitchen. Nana Bev asked Patricia a question about her daughter's school play coming up in December, and Patricia, who was quieter than I had ever known her to be at one of these gatherings, answered at some length, clearly glad for the conversation. I listened. Across the table, she caught my eye once. There was something in her expression that I will not try to name, because the formula I have developed for my own peace of mind is to describe what I observe rather than interpret what I cannot verify. Her hands were folded on the tablecloth. She was still. Colton sat beside me. He had already spoken with Craig Fenton's office and begun the process of establishing his own insurance policy. He mentioned it between the salad and the soup, not as a complaint, just as information in the straightforward way he has when he wants me to know he has handled something. He said the rate was lower than he had expected. I said I had thought it might be. He said Craig's office manager, a woman named Brenda, had walked him through the whole process in one call, and he wished he had done it sooner. I said Brenda was good at her job. He nodded. Then he asked me to pass the bread basket. I passed it. There was something clarifying in that exchange. Not dramatic. It lasted less than 90 seconds, but it was the first conversation in a long time where Colton and I were talking about something real without either of us managing around it.
He was not apologizing.
I was not explaining. We were 2 adults who had sorted out an arrangement that should have been sorted out years ago, and were now, apparently, on the other side of it. That was enough. Nana Bev had her mashed potatoes. She tasted them, set her fork down for a moment, and then picked it up again and had another bite. She declared them acceptable. My father caught my eye from across the table and smiled. From Nana Bev, acceptable is the highest grade in her repertoire. My mother's toast before the main course was shorter than usual. She thanked everyone for being there. She went around the table. My father, Warren and Sheila, Delia and Marcus, Greg and Patricia, Colton, Nana Bev, and then she paused when she reached my name. Her hand was around her wine glass. It was very still. She said she was glad I had come. She did not say more than that. She did not need to. I looked at her and nodded. In January, the insurance transfer completed. Craig sent me the final confirmation, and the monthly line disappeared from my statement. I noticed its absence the way you notice the end of a sound you had been hearing for so long you stopped registering it, not as relief, exactly, but as a kind of factual clarity. An accurate accounting of what I was actually paying for and what I was not. The grocery subscription stayed paused through the new year. In February, my mother called me to ask, directly, with a clear question, waiting for my answer, whether I would be willing to help split the cost of a birthday dinner for Nana Bev's 82nd. I said yes. She said thank you. We worked out the details in about 4 minutes and both moved on with our days. I noticed the difference in that phone call. Not because it was dramatic, it wasn't. It was a short, practical conversation between two adults sorting out a logistics question. But the shape of it was different from every arrangement that had preceded it. There was a question. There was an answer. There was a thank you. Nothing had been assumed. Nothing had been allowed to drift into permanence, without acknowledgement. The contribution was the same size it might have been before. What was different was that it had been asked for rather than expected, and received rather than taken. It is a slower rhythm than what I had been running before. More deliberate. There are conversations attached to things now that used to happen invisibly, and those conversations take more effort than silence did. But they are honest, and I have found that honest structures, even when they are smaller than the ones they replace, do not leave me sitting in parking garages in the dark longer than I need to. There is a kind of invisible labor that accumulates inside families so gradually that no one, including the person doing it, fully registers the total until something interrupts the pattern. It becomes ambient, expected, part of the landscape, the same way the house itself becomes part of the landscape. You stop noticing it the way you stop noticing furniture you walk past every day. The effort disappears into the background of ordinary life, and what remains is only the result. The dinner that happens, the subscription that renews, the car that stays insured, which reads not as a gift but as a given. It is only when the furniture moves, or goes missing, or turns out to have been on loan the entire time, that you see the shape it left in the carpet underneath. I am not interested in keeping a ledger of what I give to the people I love. Relationships are not contracts, and I do not approach them as such. But I have stopped being willing to fund the assumption that my presence is optional, while my contributions are simply the weather, the kind of thing that is present without anyone looking at the sky. The clearest limit I have ever set had no speech attached to it. No ultimatum, no announcement, no moment at a dinner table where I laid out the full accounting and waited for recognition. There was a phone call to an events coordinator named Sylvia Marsh, a paused subscription, an email to a broker, and then 48 hours of people I loved discovering, slowly and specifically, the particular weight of something they had never thought to look at. What you make easy becomes invisible. What you stop making easy becomes real. If you made it to the end of the story, the moment I find myself returning to is not the group chat message or the dinner, or even the phone call to Sylvia. It is the 48 hours in between, when the family was faced with a question none of them had ever had to answer before. Who handles this when Renata doesn't? I want to ask you something specific. Has there been a moment in your life when you quietly stopped carrying something you had always been relied on for, not out of anger, not as a statement, just because you had reached the point where continuing didn't make sense anymore, and found that the only time anyone noticed you had been doing it was the moment you stopped? Leave that in the comments. I read every one. If this story stayed with you, please like it. It tells me to keep making more like this. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and hit the notification bell. I'd rather it find you than have you go looking. I'll see you in the next story. This is an original fictional adaptation created for entertainment purposes only. All names, characters, events, and settings are invented.